Hey guys, MA Fish Guy here. Today's video is going to be on how to set up a saltwater tank successfully, easily, and even on a low budget. Nowadays, saltwater tanks really aren't as hard as they make them out to be. With the new technology, the new filtration, new chemicals, everything like that, it's really almost as easy as setting up a freshwater tank, just a couple more steps added to it. With a saltwater tank, usually I recommend doing a larger tank for a setup. Right now I have a 7-gallon nano setup, which is, it can house a little bit in it. Mostly it's just inverts now and corals. Usually for a beginner I recommend a 20-gallon. That way what happens is, say your salinity starts, with the evaporation rate your salinity will slightly raise in a 20-gallon. In a 7-gallon you have high evaporation rate, which can spike your salinity levels and wipe out a whole tank. And also with a larger tank, if something is going wrong in the tank, it does take a little bit longer for it to actually affect the tank, and you can usually stop it or get rid of it in time. With a nano tank, it's a little bit tougher, so it's usually best for a experienced aquarist to do it. But what you need to set up a tank is you actually need the tank, of course, the lighting, the filter. If you're going to be doing corals, anemones, anything like that, I recommend a power head, but you're not going to need that first thing. So as well as the tank, you're going to need a water conditioner, and I use the Tetra AquaSafe. You're going to need a salinity test. You're going to need the actual instant ocean sea salt, or any kind of sea mix. I believe Red Sea also makes one. You're going to need the fish food, and some kind of, like, either a reef accelerator, anything like that that's going to help add some trace elements to the actual tank. That way if you want to do some of your live rocks, corals in the beginning, they're going to absorb it a lot quicker out of the sea mix than they would the chemicals. So the chemicals are nice to add, that way you don't deplete the aquarium of them. So first what you're going to be doing is, with an empty tank, you want to either add the crushed coral or sand. It's very important to decide what you want for fish wise or even invert wise in the beginning. That way it kind of determines what substrate you're going to use. If you want to use a lot of sand sifting, fish, inverts, anything like that, you want to definitely do a sand. You can also buy live sand, which is nice. It's packed with all the bacteria and everything you're going to need to set up a tank in the beginning. Or you can do a crushed coral. Crushed coral is a little bit cheaper. It does come in a live form, but I really don't like using it. I tend to get an algae spike every time I do use it, so I just go with a regular crushed coral. It's nice looking, and it really doesn't get a whole lot of algae on it. Same thing with the sand. Sand doesn't get a whole lot of algae on it, but you will sometimes get like a black algae or a red algae that kind of coats the sand if you don't have a lot of water movement in the tank. But anyways, for that, like I said, substrate, sand or crushed coral. Next you're going to decide if you want live rock. If you want live rock, you're going to want to build up wherever you're putting it, or put a layer of base rock. That way, the rock's not sitting right on the glass or anything like that. I at least do it about an inch, inch and a half thick, sometimes 2 inches thick in the heavier rock areas. That way, like I said, it's not sitting on the glass. It's not cracking it, breaking it, anything like that. It's perfect. Usually for rock, I recommend usually about a pound of rock per gallon of water. In this, and you can do more. In this 7-gallon right now, I think I'm up to like 25 pounds. So you can do a lot more, a lot less. It really doesn't matter. But the more live rock, the better. There's just a lot of cool things that it does. A lot of algae that can, appear on it. Inverts that will actually crawl out of it. I've had eels come out of it. Snails, brittle stars, crabs, Sally Lightfoots, a lot of cool different things. Plus with the purple coralline algae, it's really pretty in a tank. Plus, as you can see, it pretty much coats everything, which gives it a nice deep purple look. But what you're going to do is you want to add the coral after you rinse it, or the sand, and the best way to rinse it is in a 5-gallon bucket and dump it into it, and pretty much rinse it, dump it, rinse it, dump it, rinse it, dump it, unless you have a really fine meshed strainer that you can use. Because no matter how many times you're going to rinse it after you do put it in, the water's going to get real cloudy until it settles. and this is perfectly normal, but the less debris and stuff in the actual coral, the better. So after you add the coral or the sand and basically put it down how you want it, you can add the water. Now the best way to do it is get a 5-gallon bucket, and I know this is going to sound lengthy, but it's really not. You get a 5-gallon bucket, and it's a half a cup per gallon, so you're going to use 2.5 cups of salt for a 5-gallon bucket and dump it in that way. This is the best way, that way you can control the salinity. You do want it usually in the range of 1.020 to about 1.024. You can go all the way up to 1.026, but I usually keep it around the 1.023. That way it's a steady salinity in the tank. And that's usually the recommended for any kind of instant ocean, Red Sea mix, anything like that. But after you've added the water, like I said, bucket by bucket, that way you can control it. You can then, if you want, put your live rock in. I really don't recommend it until everything's kind of settled on the actual substrate. So usually it's going to take up to about a week for actually the debris and the cloudiness to go away. Kick your filter on. That way it kind of helps pick it up. You can use water clarifiers, but I really don't recommend it. It'll just do it itself. Usually within a week to about 2 weeks, you can start introducing fish. I really don't recommend anything pricey. If you want to do something pricey, $30, $40 a fish, go for it, but that's a real high chance that you really don't want to take. Usually I recommend the damsels, or if you can find a pet store that does the saltwater mollies. Basically there's acclimated from freshwater to saltwater. They're real pretty when they get full grown, especially with all the minerals and trace elements and stuff like that in the tanks. It kind of helps their color and growth, and even the sail fins are absolutely amazing in the saltwater tank. I've actually had a tank where I only do the mollies, and like I said, they're absolutely gorgeous. But after you added the fish, just like a freshwater tank, you want to let it sit and acclimate with the new fish in it. You don't want to add anything too soon, especially in a saltwater tank, because like I said, if things go wrong, it goes wrong bad, and you can lose quite a few fish, quite a few dollars in fish. So it's best to take it slow in a saltwater tank. After about 2 to 3 weeks, once all the cloudiness has gone away, if you have the lighting for corals, inverts, anything like that, you want to do the lighting for the say you have a leather coral or zoas, green star pops, you can start adding those, but make sure to put them onto a live rock and research them to find out the requirements for lighting, filtration. Leather corals do need a power head. Same thing with the green star polyps, and even your zoas. So you want to definitely look into what the requirements are for the specific corals and stuff you're getting. After you added the corals and everything like that, you can start getting into the more expensive fish, but this is the one part that actually is different from a freshwater, where most things get along, and even if they don't, you only lose $10. In a saltwater tank, you add the wrong fish, and it doesn't get along with the others, you're losing $30 to $40. Pet stores don't usually have a return policy on the fish, so if you find one, go for it, and that's probably going to be your best bet to get fish from. But most of them, like Petco, PetSmart, any of your local chains, any of your mom and pop shops, they will not offer it because they are a requirement difference for saltwater. So I mean, one big thing is you don't want to put tangs together. If you have a big tank, then you can put like a hippo tang and a yellow tang, because they do look a lot different. But I mean, like I said, you want to look into specifics of what you want to get before you set up the tank. If you want something big like the yellow tangs, puffers, eels, some of your bigger angels, you're going to want a bigger tank. And like I said, the bigger the better. If you can do a 55 or a 75 or a 90, that's the best way to go. You're going to get a lot more enjoyment out of it, but the price of things do go up. What you can do for corals is a compact fluorescent. They're usually the cheapest lighting, the best lighting, and you can pretty much get them anywhere online. We offer them at the store on mafishguy.com, so you can buy them there as well. You can also do LEDs, and the list goes on and on for lighting. But like I said, you want to check into the specific requirements for any corals or anything like that before you get into lighting. And if you want to do fish only, you really don't need to do a crazy lighting. There are actually bulbs out there that do intensify the coloration on the fish, so you might want to look into those. So to recap everything, 20-gallon tank or bigger usually is the best way to go. You do need a water conditioner, hydrometer, the instant ocean mix, and some kind of food. The food is for the fish, and for the first week you do want to drop it in a little bit at a time to build up the bacteria levels. But if you do have live rock, that's going to cut that process down big time. So you're going to add the coral or sand, you're going to add the water, then the live rock, and then you can start doing fish after about a week or two. Like I said, damsels or mollies are the cheapest way to go. Damsels usually run about $5. Mollies, when they're all acclimated and everything, usually run $3 to $4. So you can do either or. And then just go from there. Like I said, look up, if you're doing corals, fish, look up who gets along, what gets along, and how they get along. That's the best way to do it. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you want to check out the website, mafishguide.com. Check out our store. Everything you purchase helps do these videos, helps the website stay up and keep going. Check it out, and thanks, and subscribe.